Another hot day, perfect day to share another life hack. I'm Bear, and this is the Hype Mind. So, how often do you find yourself in a situation where you might want to untangle your thoughts, or you might want some advice, or you might not know what decision to make, etc., right? You might look to turn to a friend, or a family member, or a mentor, or someone who is knowledgeable in that area or has that kind of experience, what have you. But a lot of times, what people don't realize, and sometimes you do this subconsciously, is you can be your own mentor in a lot of situations. You can take both the student and the teacher role. There's actually an expression, you're your own biggest cheerleader. And I mean, that alludes to rooting for yourself, but, nobody knows yourself better than you do. And so you can do more than just root for yourself. You can instruct yourself, and that's kind of what I'm getting at here, right? A lot of times you find yourself in a situation where you don't know what direction to go and you think you're helpless. And people say, well, go with your gut, right? Because it turns out that all along you did know what direction to go, so you listen to your gut. And that's the situation you'll encounter is very often you do actually know the answer to the questions you don't think you know the answer to. A lot of times you already have that answer. A lot of times you already know what to do. So what do I mean when I say instruct yourself, right? Well, you're taking the role of two different persons, yourself in the first person and yourself in the second person. You're essentially lecturing yourself, right? Or pep talking if that's the scenario. You know, again, you've probably done this. You probably stood in front of a mirror before a speech or a big game or whatever, a social event, and been like, you got this, you can do this, I know I can do this, but you don't say I. Sometimes you say I can do this, right? Sometimes you say you can do this, right? And that's interesting. And that's what I'm getting at, right? Because the first thing I think it's important to understand, which most people know, is you need to love yourself and you need to respect yourself. And I think that gets sticky in that area because a lot of times we don't act virtuously. We act in a way, we don't act in a good way, right? We do things that make us shameful or make us disappointed in ourselves or make us angry at ourselves or whatever. And that side of us that acts in a not so good way ends up consuming our entire personality. And we say, this is who I am, you know? But the reality is there is a side of you that you do love and you do respect, whether or not you do it actively, whether or not you know you love and respect, that there is a side of you, and that's the side you have to pull out and use as your mentor to mentor the other side or to mentor whatever the situation is that you're in. Because like I said, you might just be untangling thoughts, and you haven't necessarily done anything to make yourself feel ashamed or identify yourself as being bad or what have you, right? You're just in a situation where you're not necessarily judging yourself. You don't see yourself as this perfect person, but you don't see yourself as this bad person either, right? You're just in a situation, you're in a very neutral position where you don't know what to do. In which case, you can take the side of you that is the side of you that you love and respect and offer advice to yourself. Sounds a little crazy, but like I said, often you already have the answer to the problems or the questions or the challenges that you don't think you know how to get through, right? A lot of times you actually already do. You realize, hey, there are past circumstances that are very familiar to this or similar to this that I'm familiar with that I can transfer my knowledge from one to another and use it to get through that. Um, and like I said earlier, it's kind of like a pep talk. It's kind of like a lecture. You sit down and you say, hey, you know better than this. Don't do this, right? Maybe you're talking to the side of yourself that constantly fails at something, constantly does something that doesn't fail to disappoint you, that you know is wrong, and that a lot of times, like I said, you let that side consume your identity, um, when really there's a whole lot more to you. There is a virtuous side to you, and there is the side to you that you do love and respect, and that's the side you need to let lecture the other areas of yourself, especially the areas that are struggling to make decisions, are struggling to do the right thing, and um, are trying to find the solution to the problem that you're trying to work through, right? So that's the message here is you can be an instructor to yourself, a teacher to yourself, um, a mentor to yourself, and you can be your own student. You can sit there and think, what would I tell myself in this scenario? I would yell at myself. I would slap my own wrist and say, I know better than that. I've made that mistake in the past, and the consequences were not pleasant, right? There was pain after I made that decision. Do I want to do it again? No, I don't want to do it again. And what that looks like coming from the second person is, what are you doing? You've done this before. Why on earth would you do that? And a lot of times, like I said, you have those dialogues subconsciously with yourself, um, but they're subconscious. You don't realize they're happening, right? So what I'm doing is trying to bring that out in light so that you can actually use that to your advantage, so that you don't always have to. Not that there's anything wrong with leaning on other people for help, turning to other people for help, seeking advice from other people, seeking additional opinions. But a lot of times the opinions aren't there, and a lot of times they're not. A lot of times they don't have the answer we need. A lot of times we have the answer we need inside of us already. We know what's best for ourselves, but we don't know because we're not asking ourselves the right question, and we're not asking the version of ourselves that we love and respect or want to love and respect. So you can do that. You can come from a second person point of view and you can say, you know better than this, or you've got this, or this is nothing. This is something you've done before that you can totally conquer. Whatever the situation is, whether it's a problem, a challenge, a decision, um, preventative medicine, a reality check, whatever, you can be your own teacher and instructor. Give yourself that pep talk if that's what you need. Peace.